Hi, today I'm going to talk about loneliness, depression, and anxiety. As you know, we've been through a pandemic where we were required to isolate and lock down for our safety and those that we care about. Unfortunately, for some people, it turned into depression and anxiety, which exacerbated feelings of loneliness and isolation. Loneliness is a state of mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're alone. Sometimes people feel lonely even when they're surrounded by people. Because it's a state of mind, we have an opportunity to do some things about it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Loneliness often is found in individuals who experience depression. When we're depressed, we feel sad, lethargic, we have low energy, we don't feel very good about ourselves or how things are going in our lives. We feel depressed. Sometimes we feel irritable and get cranky. And with that, we start to isolate. We don't necessarily enjoy being around other people. And so we find it easier to manage our depression by saying no to social events, by declining invitations to do things with others. With that, then sometimes we develop anxiety. When there is an opportunity to do something, we may start to feel socially anxious. Perhaps we're telling ourselves we've been out of the loop for so long, what if our social mannerisms are inappropriate? Maybe we don't know how to connect with people anymore. Perhaps we worry that we're going to be rejected or feel further feelings of isolation because we've been excluded. Sometimes social media contributes to feelings of isolation and feeling left out and excluded when we see other people in our social circle getting together. So again, we start to experience a cycle of depression, anxiety, loneliness, depression, anxiety, and loneliness. When the pandemic started, about 1 in 10 people identified as feeling lonely, and through the pandemic, that number went to 1 in 4. So what that means is that 1 out of 4 people now feel lonely. They feel that they're isolated. They feel that they're disconnected from people around them. They find it worrisome or anxiety producing to think about going back to some of the social events or activities that they were a part of. For instance, they may worry about whether or not others are vaccinated, or if they want to wear a mask, whether or not they'll be made fun of if they choose to wear a mask because of their own health issues or concerns. What we want to talk about today is how do we validate or acknowledge those feelings of loneliness? Sometimes we as friends and family may notice that people have started to shut us out more. Maybe perhaps before the pandemic, they were willing to come to a gathering, a social event, meet us for hors d'oeuvres or appetizers at a local pub. And now when we extend an invitation, we're often met with a no thank you or an excuse of I'm busy, there's something else going on. And after a while, we may stop asking them to join us. We may think that perhaps our company is not desired. However, individuals who are lonely do struggle with coming back into that social realm. Loneliness becomes a habit. And what I mean by that is that we start to become comfortable or tell ourselves that we are better off alone, that we're comfortable being alone, that it's okay to be alone. So let me talk a little bit about the difference between loneliness and solitude. Solitude is something that's healthy for us. Spending time alone, doing something we enjoy, regrouping, recharging ourselves, that's very healthy for us. Many of us have a practice of solitude where we carve out some time during the week to read a book, work in our garden, go fishing, just to do something on our own. We often feel re-energized. We often enjoy our connections a little bit more when we've had a break. Loneliness is different. Loneliness is where, again, we may feel depressed and or anxious about socializing. We may worry that we're going to not be included, be rejected, and so on. The difficulty with loneliness is that we start to create a perpetual pattern of telling ourselves that people don't really want to be around us and that we're better off without people. Unfortunately, that mode of thinking becomes a stuck place for us, and we start to develop misconceptions of the well-intentions of others. So for instance, what we know is that individuals who've been lonely for quite some time, months, perhaps even a couple of years, will not trust that people who are inviting them to do things or wanting to include them are well-intentioned. And that creates more feelings of loneliness. Again, now we're back in this pattern of, well, they really didn't want to include me, they felt obligated to include me, or they laughed at my jokes or statements out of obligation. It wasn't because I'm truly funny. When that happens, then we miss opportunities in that loneliness to see that people genuinely want to connect with us. We have misperceptions or misconceptions of what is intended by those around us. We can work through loneliness. Loneliness is achieved by doing things and looking for the positives or the pleasant connections that are formed in those social interactions. We might have to challenge ourselves a little bit. We may get really stuck in lonely type thinking where we tell ourselves that people really don't want us around, and we're going to have to challenge that. So how do we do that? We look for the positives or the pleasantness. Things like people making eye contact with us, people smiling and nodding with us as we're talking with them, people asking us questions, how are you doing, and genuinely waiting for the answer to hear how we're doing. That helps alleviate our depression and anxiety that might be connected to our loneliness. We work through depression by being socially connected and interacting with others. We also work through our anxiety by showing or teaching ourselves that there's really nothing to be nervous about. People are genuinely including us and wanting us to be a part of their social network. One of the ways that we can start to break out of our loneliness is by volunteering. We can find something that we're interested in where we would meet other like-minded people who are also sharing those same interests. So perhaps we volunteer at a dog shelter or an animal shelter, maybe taking pets for walks and getting to meet other people who care about animals too. Perhaps we find something at our local library, a book club, or a meeting of different topics or genres of books. And so again, we're meeting some like-minded people, increasing the likelihood that we would have some shared interests and perspectives. We can also do some therapy. Therapy would help us to challenge those myths that come along with those lonely thoughts and feelings. Again, loneliness is a state of mind. It's a way that we perceive ourselves and the world. It's not that we're alone, it's how we perceive it. And so therapy is a great way to help ourselves learn to catch those myths, those thinking errors, and to put ourselves in a situation where we can start to develop those relationships. Again, looking for things like people making eye contact, smiling at us, maybe giving us a half hug and letting us know they're so glad to see us, and to really embrace those warm opportunities. Finally, if you are someone who sees that you have a loved one or someone you care about who seems to be isolating more now that things are open again and we have the opportunity to be out and about with each other, don't hesitate to reach out to them. Ask them if they would like to join you on a walk. Ask them if they would like to take a yoga class with you. Ask them if they would like to go fishing with you. Don't hesitate to reach out, and don't take it personally if they say no at first. Just keep encouraging them that you would really like to have some time with them. Maybe ask them if there's something they haven't done in a while that they would like to do again, and offer to do it with them. The more that we can join each other and encourage each other, the less lonely we will feel. The outcomes of that are profound, in that what we know is that people who are chronically lonely 2 years or more have a lower life expectancy, have more cardiovascular issues, have an increase in diabetic issues, and have an increase in mental health issues. So being lonely is not a great way to live life. We certainly want to overcome loneliness so that we increase our life expectancy and our physical and mental health.